The iron tower, Olivia Bennet clutched her portfolio to her chest, the leather folder a shield against the nervous flutter in her stomach. The elevator hummed as it ascended to the 87th floor of the Vertex Technologies headquarters. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman attempting confidence. Navy blazer pressed, chestnut hair swept into a neat bun, and green eyes wide with a mixture of determination and dread. Today marked her first day as the new product development coordinator, working directly under Julian Reed, the company's notoriously demanding CEO. His reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. The Terminator, they called him in industry. Circles, a brilliant but merciless leader who disposed of underperforming employees without a second thought. He fired the last coordinator for using the wrong font in a presentation. Her friend Tess had warned when Olivia accepted the position. But the salary's worth the risk, I guess. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a minimalist expanse of glass and steel. A slim woman with platinum blonde hair approached, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Olivia Bennet? I'm Penelope Frost, Mr. Reed's executive assistant. Follow me. Penelope led her through an open workspace where employees typed furiously, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of multiple monitors. No one looked up. No one spoke above a whisper. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Mr. Reed expects precision and efficiency, Penelope explained, her voice clipped. He doesn't tolerate excuses or delays. Your predecessor lasted 3 months. The one before that, 6 weeks. They reached a glass-walled conference room where a man stood with his back to them, gazing out at the city skyline. Even from behind, Julian Reed commanded attention, tall and lean in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Dark hair precisely cut. Sir, your new coordinator has arrived, Penelope announced. When he turned, Olivia felt a jolt of surprise. She'd expected someone older, hardened by years of corporate warfare. Instead, she faced a man perhaps in his late 30s, with sharp cheekbones, piercing gray eyes, and a face that might have been handsome if not for its complete lack of warmth. Ms. Bennet. His voice was deep and measured, devoid of any welcoming tone. Your resume claims you increased efficiency by 30% at Dalton Industries. I did, Olivia replied, refusing to be intimidated. I implemented a new project management system that— Prove it here, he interrupted, sliding a tablet across the table. These are our current development timelines. They're unacceptable. Olivia glanced at the screen, her mind already analyzing the workflow diagrams. The bottleneck is in the testing phase. If you restructured the QA teams to work in parallel rather than sequentially, then we risk missing critical integration errors, Reed countered. Not if you implement continuous integration testing from the start, she challenged. Forgetting her nervousness in the face of the problem, something flashed in his eyes, surprise perhaps at being contradicted. Ambitious. But theories aren't results, Ms. Bennet. Give me 2 weeks. I'll show you results. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. 1 week. And if the numbers don't improve, don't bother coming back for a second. Thus began Olivia's tenure at Vertex Technologies, days filled with grueling hours and impossible expectations. Reed was exacting to the point of cruelty, dismantling her proposals in front of colleagues, questioning her methods at every turn. Twice she found herself in the bathroom, fighting back tears of frustration. Yet something drove her to prove herself, not just to keep the job, but to show this cold, brilliant man that she was his equal. When he demolished her ideas, she rebuilt them stronger. When he set impossible deadlines, she met them, fueled by determination and cups of bitter office coffee. By Friday, dark circles shadowed her eyes, but the revised workflow was implemented and showing promising early metrics. As the office emptied for the weekend, Olivia remained, finessing her presentation for Monday morning. Still here? Reed's voice startled her. She looked up to find him standing in the doorway, suit jacket gone, tie loosened. The first sign of humanity she'd seen in him. I don't leave things half-finished, she replied. For a moment, something that might have been approval crossed his face. Then it vanished, replaced by his usual impassive mask. Monday morning, 8 a.m., don't be late. He turned to leave, then paused. "And Bennett, go home. The work will still be there tomorrow." As his footsteps faded down the hallway, Olivia sat back, realizing she'd just glimpsed something rare, a hairline crack in Julian Reed's perfect armor. And despite herself, she wondered what else might lie beneath. Glimpses of light, the weeks at Vertex Technologies blurred together in a haze of deadlines and expectations. Olivia's initial project had succeeded, barely, earning her a curt nod from Julian Reed and the right to continue occupying her desk. Small victory though it was, it felt monumental in the pressure cooker of the 87th floor. October brought a major product launch, and with it, 18-hour workdays that tested even the most dedicated employees. Olivia found herself practically living at the office, surviving on vending machine snacks and determination. The development team looked increasingly haggard as Julian pushed for perfection with relentless intensity. "He's a machine," muttered Daniel, one of the senior developers, as they worked late one evening. "No family, no life outside these walls. Just the next project, the next profit margin." Olivia had begun to believe it herself until the night she discovered otherwise. It was past midnight when she headed to the break room for her third coffee. The executive wing was dark except for the soft glow emanating from Julian's office. As she passed, she overheard his voice, not the sharp, commanding tone she knew, but something gentler. "Yes, I understand it's expensive," he was saying. "That's why I'm covering it personally. Just make sure Mrs. Hernandez doesn't know where it came from." Curious, Olivia lingered, pretending to check her phone. "Her husband was one of our first engineers. Back when we were nothing but an idea in a garage," Julian continued. "The least we can do is ensure his widow doesn't lose her home while fighting cancer." The revelation struck Olivia like a physical blow. Julian Reed, the man who supposedly cared only for results, was secretly paying for a former employee's widow's medical bills. She hurried away before he could discover her eavesdropping, but the incident planted a seed of doubt about her perception of him. 3 days later, she noticed another crack in his facade. The marketing team had missed a critical deadline, and everyone braced for the inevitable storm. Julian called the department head, Vanessa, into his office. The glass walls provided a silent movie of what appeared to be a tense discussion. Instead of the expected firing, however, Julian simply listened as Vanessa, clearly distressed, explained something. He nodded, made a few notes, and then unexpectedly, he stood and walked to his credenza, returning with what looked like concert tickets. Later, Olivia overheard Vanessa telling her assistant, "He gave me the weekend off, said to take my daughter to the symphony since I missed her recital working on the campaign." "Who does that?" Not the Julian Reed that office legend described, certainly. Yet Olivia found herself cataloging these inconsistencies like precious stones, small, hidden glimpses of humanity in a man renowned for his coldness. The most revealing moment came during the quarterly review. Wesley, a junior analyst, froze during his presentation, his stutter, normally controlled, overtaking him as anxiety mounted under Julian's intense gaze. The room tensed, awaiting the CEO's legendary impatience. Instead, Julian calmly stood. "Let's take 15, he announced, and then, to everyone's shock, he approached Wesley and spoke quietly. "Walk with me." When they returned, Wesley's presentation proceeded smoothly, with Julian occasionally nodding encouragement. Later, Olivia overheard Wesley tell a colleague, "He said his brother had a stutter. Taught me a breathing technique on the spot." These moments accumulated like brushstrokes, painting a more complex portrait of Julian Reed than the corporate tyrant of reputation. Yet in meetings, he remained exacting and uncompromising, particularly with Olivia. He challenged her ideas relentlessly, pushed back on her proposals, demanded data for every assertion. "You're harder on her than anyone," Penelope remarked one day within Olivia's earshot. "Because she's capable of more," came Julian's matter-of-fact reply. The statement lingered with Olivia, a peculiar warmth spreading through her chest despite herself. She found herself working harder, not from fear, but from a growing desire to prove him right. When the Tokyo Technology Conference was announced, Julian stunned the executive team by selecting Olivia to accompany him. "Your integration protocol impressed our Japanese partners," he explained simply, ignoring the looks of surprise from more senior staff. As they boarded the corporate jet, Olivia realized Julian had removed his usual armor, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents. "Thank you for this opportunity," she said, settling into the seat across from him. He looked up, gray eyes unguarded for once. "You earned it, Olivia." It was the first time he'd used her first name, and something shifted between them. Not quite friendship, but a tentative respect. As the plane soared over the Pacific, Olivia wondered if Tokyo might reveal even more of the man behind the fearsome reputation, never imagining just how dramatically that revelation would come. Tokyo flames. The Kyoto Grand Hotel stood like a glass monolith against Tokyo's neon-painted skyline, housing the elite of the technology world for the annual Pacific Rim Innovation Conference. For 3 days, Olivia moved through a whirlwind of presentations, networking events and negotiations with Julian Reed as her constant shadow. Here, away from the familiar pressures of Vertex headquarters, she observed yet another version of Julian. In meetings with Japanese executives, he displayed unexpected cultural fluency, speaking passable Japanese and observing etiquette that impressed even the most traditional businessmen. During presentations, his usual cutting demeanor transformed into something magnetic, a visionary who painted technological futures so compelling that even competitors leaned forward in their seats. "You never mentioned you spoke Japanese," Olivia remarked as they reviewed notes in the hotel lounge on the third evening. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "There are many things you don't know about me, Ms. Bennett." The formal address had returned, yet something in his tone had softened. Their working relationship had evolved into an efficient partnership during the trip, with Julian actually listening to her insights rather than merely tolerating them. The gala dinner on the final night transformed the hotel's grand ballroom into a showcase of wealth and influence. Olivia had splurged on a midnight blue gown that made her feel equal to the occasion. When she entered the ballroom, she caught Julian's gaze following her, something unreadable in his expression, before he quickly looked away. As midnight approached, Olivia slipped away from a conversation with tech investors, exhaustion finally catching up with her. The elevator carried her to the 32nd floor, where her room offered blessed quiet after the social demands of the evening. She had just changed into silk pajamas when the first alarm sounded, a harsh, insistent wail cutting through the hotel's serenity. Initially dismissing it as a drill, Olivia's concern mounted when an announcement in Japanese and then English confirmed, "Fire emergency. Please proceed to the nearest exit stairwell. Do not use elevators." Heart pounding, she grabbed her phone, passport, and room key, then wrapped the hotel robe around her pajamas before heading into the hallway. Already the corridor filled with confused guests moving toward the emergency stairs. Smoke, faint but unmistakable, tainted the air. The stairwell churned with people descending from higher floors. Olivia joined the flow, counting floors as they descended. At the 27th floor, the smoke thickened noticeably. By the 25th, visibility diminished as acrid clouds billowed up the stairwell. Somewhere around the 20th floor, panic erupted above them. A crush of bodies pressed downward, separating Olivia from the wall. Someone's luggage tumbled down the stairs, causing people to stumble. In the chaos, Olivia lost her footing and fell hard against the railing, pain shooting through her ankle. Struggling to stand in the push of bodies, she managed to limp down another 2 floors before the pain became unbearable. The crowd thinned as most guests outpaced her, leaving her increasingly alone in the smoke-filled stairwell. Each breath burned her lungs, and disorientation began to set in. By the 15th floor, she couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Dizziness overtook her, and she sank down against the wall, pulling the robe over her mouth in a futile attempt to filter the air. Her phone showed no service. Panic clawed at her throat as the realization hit. She was trapped, and the smoke was getting thicker. "Help!" she called, but her voice emerged as a weak croak. The stairwell had emptied of other evacuees, everyone moving faster than her injured pace. Darkness edged her vision, consciousness slipping as oxygen depleted. Through the smoky haze, a figure appeared, tall and indistinct, moving against the flow of evacuation. A dream, she thought hazily. Then strong hands gripped her shoulders. "Olivia!" Julian's voice cut through her mental fog. His face, illuminated briefly by emergency lights, showed something she'd never seen there before. Fear. "Can't walk," she managed, gesturing weakly at her ankle. Without hesitation, Julian removed his suit jacket, soaked it with water from his bottle, and wrapped it around her face. "Breathe through this," he commanded. Then in one fluid motion, lifted her into his arms. "The fire's on the 12th floor," he explained, voice muffled by the handkerchief pressed to his own mouth. "We need to get below it." Each step downward was a battle against the thickening smoke. Julian's breathing grew labored, but his grip around Olivia remained unwavering. At one point, something crashed above them, sending sparks and debris cascading down the stairwell. Julian turned, shielding her body with his own. "Why did you come back?" she asked, the question burning more than the smoke in her lungs. His eyes, red-rimmed and watering, met hers with unexpected intensity. "I realized you weren't outside. I couldn't—" He broke off, coughing violently. "Just stay with me, Olivia. Stay conscious." The journey downward became a nightmarish blur. Twice Julian stumbled, his strength flagging as the toxic air took its toll. Once, when he paused, gasping for breath, Olivia feared he might collapse. Instead, he tightened his grip and pressed onward with grim determination. When they finally burst through the door into the ground floor lobby, emergency responders rushed forward. Olivia's last memory before unconsciousness claimed her was Julian refusing to release her to the paramedics until he was certain she would be okay, his normally perfect appearance transformed by soot and sweat. But his eyes, those usually cold gray eyes, ablaze with something that looked remarkably like tenderness. Unmasked white hospital ceiling tiles greeted Olivia when she opened her eyes. The antiseptic smell a stark contrast to the smoke that had filled her lungs. An oxygen mask covered her face, and the steady beep of monitors created a rhythmic backdrop to her confusion. "You're awake." The voice came from beside her bed. Julian sat in an uncomfortable-looking chair, his usual immaculate appearance completely undone. His white shirt was still stained with soot, sleeves rolled up to reveal bandaged forearms. Dark stubble shadowed his jaw and exhaustion lined his face. Olivia removed her oxygen mask. "How long have I been here?" 16 hours. He leaned forward. "You have smoke inhalation and a sprained ankle. The doctors say you'll recover fully. And you?" She gestured to his bandages. "Minor burns. Nothing significant?" An awkward silence filled the space between them. The carefully maintained professional distance had evaporated somewhere in that smoke-filled stairwell, leaving them in uncharted territory. "You could have died," she finally said. "Coming back for me." Julian's gaze dropped to his hands. "I couldn't leave you there." "Why?" The question hung in the air between them. When he looked up, the carefully constructed walls behind his eyes had crumbled. "Because somewhere along the way you became more than just an employee to me." His voice was rough, vulnerable in a way she'd never imagined possible from Julian Reed. The thought of losing you was unacceptable. The confession stunned them both into silence. A nurse's timely entrance spared them from navigating the emotional terrain that had suddenly opened before them. The hotel fire made international news. 3 people had died and dozens were injured, but the toll would have been higher without the hotel's evacuation protocols. Julian arranged for a private medical transport back to the States once Olivia was stable enough to travel. During the flight home, something had changed between them. Gone was the rigid formality, replaced by a tentative connection neither quite knew how to define. Julian shared stories of his childhood with a brother who had struggled with a disability, explaining his hidden support of employees facing similar challenges. Olivia spoke of her parents' small business that had been crushed by a corporate takeover, revealing the source of her initial distrust of powerful executives like him. Is that why you challenged every decision I made? Julian asked with unexpected humor. Partly, she admitted, and partly because someone needed to. His laugh, a sound she'd never heard before Tokyo, transformed his face entirely. Recovery kept Olivia working from home for 2 weeks. Julian called daily with updates, their conversations gradually extending beyond work to books they'd read, places they'd traveled, quiet revelations that formed bridges across their former divide. When she finally returned to the office, rumors already circulated about the CEO's heroic rescue. Employees looked at her differently, the woman Julian Reed had risked his life to save. People are talking. Penelope warned when Olivia stopped by Julian's office that first day back. Let them, Olivia replied, surprising herself with her indifference to office politics. Julian stood when she entered, an unfamiliar warmth in his eyes. Welcome back, thank you. For everything. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, not the formal visitor's chair, but the one adjacent to his, where trusted advisors sat. I've been reconsidering our approach to the Henderson project. They worked through the afternoon, the professional rhythm familiar yet fundamentally altered. When evening fell and the office emptied, Julian set aside his tablet. Have dinner with me, he said quietly. Not as your boss. The question hung between them, a doorway to something new and undefined. Olivia considered the complications, the power dynamics, the potential fallout. Then she remembered his arms carrying her through fire and smoke, the way he had looked at her when he thought she might not survive. Yes, she answered simply. I'd like that. Beyond Tidal Spring brought new beginnings to Vertex Technologies. Under the surface of the gleaming corporate headquarters, subtle changes rippled through the company culture. Julian Reed remained demanding and visionary, but employees now glimpsed the humanity behind his decisions. The Terminator nickname faded, replaced by genuine respect rather than fear. Olivia flourished in her expanded role as Director of Strategic Development, her relationship with Julian carefully compartmentalized from their professional interactions. They maintained separate apartments but spent weekends together, discovering common passions for obscure films and competitive chess matches that often ended in spirited debates. You've changed him, Penelope remarked one afternoon as they prepared for a board meeting. I've done no such thing, Olivia countered. He was always this person. People just couldn't see past the armor. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Industry rivals whispered about favoritism. Some executives questioned her rapid advancement. Julian's board members raised eyebrows at his increasingly balanced approach to business decisions. They think I've gone soft, Julian told her one evening as they walked along the waterfront near his home. That you've made me weak. And what do you think? She asked, studying his profile against the sunset. He considered this, gray eyes reflecting the fading light. I think I was efficient before, but incomplete. Making decisions without considering the human element isn't strength. It's simply easier. Their personal relationship remained private, though not secret. They established boundaries. Olivia refused special treatment, often arguing more fiercely in meetings than any other executive dared. Julian never pulled rank in personal disagreements. They built something rare, a partnership of equals despite their different positions. 6 months after Tokyo, Vertex launched its most ambitious project yet, affordable medical technology for underserved communities. The initiative had been Olivia's concept, but Julian's business acumen transformed it from idealistic dream to sustainable reality. At the launch event, Julian surprised everyone by stepping back from the podium. This vision belongs to our Director of Strategic Development, he announced, gesturing for Olivia to take the stage. As applause filled the room, their eyes met in a moment of shared understanding. They had each seen the other at their most vulnerable and their most powerful. They had moved beyond titles and roles to something authentic and enduring. Later that night, as they stood on the balcony of Julian's penthouse overlooking the city lights, he took her hand. I've been thinking about the future, he said quietly. The company's future? She asked, though she knew that wasn't what he meant. Our future? His voice held none of the commanding certainty he displayed in boardrooms. "I never planned for someone like you, Olivia. Never thought I'd find someone who could see past what I show the world." "Someone had to," she echoed their conversation from months earlier. Smiling at the memory, he laughed softly, then grew serious again. "I don't want to be just your boss or just your partner. I want a life with you, building something that matters together, both at Vertex and beyond it." It wasn't a conventional proposal, but then nothing about their journey had followed the expected path. Olivia thought about the frightened man who had carried her through fire, the brilliant mind that challenged her daily, the private person who supported others silently and asked for nothing in return. "I want that too," she answered, certainty filling her chest. "All of it." As Julian pulled her close, Olivia reflected on their unlikely beginning. She had seen him first as a corporate villain, then as a reluctant hero, and finally as simply a man, complex, flawed, and capable of profound devotion. They had found each other not in the polished conference rooms of power, but in a moment of crisis that stripped away pretense and revealed the truth beneath the surface. That sometimes the people we misjudge most completely are the ones who will risk everything to save us. Not just from external dangers, but from our own misconceptions about what strength and success truly mean. The city lights sparkled below them like the future unfolding, bright, uncertain, and full of possibility. Together, they would write the next chapters of their story, not as boss and employee, but as partners in the truest sense of the word.